Welcome back to take a rare break in all of our hockey and Stanley Cup programming and celebratory mood to talk about another celebration. Another guy I know and like a whole lot, and Bob Baffert had a special thing happen on Saturday evening. Those of us close enough to the horse racing thing here did not forget about it. I did not tweet much about it leading up to it. But lo and behold, at Belmont Park, another Triple Crown winner for Bob Baffert in Justify. Dick Jerardi, my longtime handicapping friend and longtime horse racing scribe for the Philadelphia Daily News, and my tender years at Sports First and the News American, where I fell on to and in love with hockey and the Baltimore Skipjacks and Gene Ubriaco. He was out at Laurel with Ekman and the boys, betting the ponies. Took you this long to get one Triple Crown winner. Dick, it's incredible, this horse a couple of years apart doing something that it took most of our lives to see happen again, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to look at it, Nestor. We get 2 in 4 years, or we get 2 in 40 years, right? Just depends on what how your outlook is. But yeah, also historically they've run in bunches, 30s, 40s, 70s, and now to the 2010s. We'll see if we can't get another one. But yeah, it was cool being there for sure.
Well, give me the whole lowdown on all of this. I mean, what will they say about this horse against American Pharoah? Does it matter? Clearly, the slop of the Derby made for sort of a legendary run, and we're all familiar, guys our age, with Secretariat in 73, and I know you've got personal stories of that you regaled us with last month, but what's going to be about this horse that's going to be different than the last horse in judging these horses? Because guys like you are going to be asked about this forever, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's hard to compare, obviously, eras. Secretariat's in a class all his own. There's no reason to compare any horse to Secretariat because it's not fair to the other horse because he was in another realm. But what Justify did is unprecedented in a couple ways. First, he didn't make his first start until February 18th. So in 111 days, he goes from his first start to winning the Triple Crown. That's never even come close to happening. And second, he's only the second horse ever to win the Triple Crown while unbeaten. The first was Seattle Slew, so that's pretty cool. And other than that, he's the 13th Triple Crown winner, and he'll live on forever.
In the case of Baffert and getting one of these horses that can do it, right? And then judging how it gets done, I could go back to whatever that date is that the horse had won its first race, and you called me a couple days later and said, keep an eye on Justify. I can honestly say that you gave me a Triple Crown winner in early March, Dick. You did. And I don't know what the odds of winning the Triple Crown for that horse would have been. What would it have been, by the way? And I know you would know that on March 10th or whatever it was.
They wouldn't even have put up a number like that. At that point, they just would have had a Derby future up, and he was right about that time about 40-1. So for the Triple Crown, he probably would have been 500-1, 1,000-1. I mean, some crazy numbers. Yeah, if you could find the line, which I doubt you could have.
Why wouldn't you be able to find that at that point? I mean, why wouldn't somebody be able to cash the ultimate ticket here? This horse has done something that, you brought the horse up, but even Derby week, you're like, well, it's kind of a lightly raced horse. It's a favorite. It's a big field. It's a slop fest. I mean, this horse has checked all the boxes, right? Except maybe having great horses around it, right?
Well, and winning by giant margins and running really fast times, which is obviously what Secretariat did. But that could be in the future. This horse has had to have a lot of races crammed in to an incredibly short period of time. Now he'll be able to race with normal rest in between each of his starts. And that's when American Pharoah finally popped up and started running really fast when he actually got rest between races.
Well, we've seen this so many times with any of these great horses, the quick retirement, the sending them out to stud, to syndicating, and all of that, like, quite frankly, fuels the whole industry. Where are we with this? Because there was such a calling for American Pharoah, and, Bob Baffert and I have had several conversations about what a smart, gentle creature and, fan-friendly and people-friendly and all of that was supposed to save racing. And I know you and I have had that trite conversation 2 times a year, every year for the last, 30 years as to what was going to make horse racing great again, but certainly great champions have to be a part of that, right?
They do, and unfortunately the economics of the sport are unchanged from 3 years ago when American Pharoah was hustled off the stud. The reality is these superstar horses are just worth a whole lot more as stallions than they are as race horses, and My guess is we're going to take a look at Justify maybe 2 or 3 more times, and that'll be it. And that's really unfortunate. It's one of the to me, it's the single biggest problem with the game, because no game can survive without stars, and horse racing stars just don't last long.
Yeah, it's like maybe college basketball if they just like left and never played again, right? Like
right.
If Magic and Larry had nowhere to go except out to a pasture where no one could see them, basketball wouldn't be built 40 years later, right? Your stars have to run. Rock stars have to get on stage and sing, right?
Yeah, and it's also the nature of the animal, right? They're not machines. They get hurt. They're not going to be able to play in every game, run in every race. So that's part of the issue too. But it also, and Nestor, in the big races, and I know you and I have talked about this, the Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont, they're never more popular than they are now. There was the second biggest handle at Belmont Park in the track's history yesterday. So these big race days attract huge amounts of gambling. They had over 90,000 people there, and a lot of people in their 20s. But the issue is they're not coming back. They're not coming back tomorrow. They're coming for an event, and that's what yesterday was. So that's what Saturday was. So it's just hard to get that to happen again.
Well, and in the case of Baffert or Smith or anybody associated with any of these winners, they're the only ones who talk, right? Like, and the owners, they're the only ones who can create the ripple of interest or whatever is ongoing, that horse racing doesn't get swallowed up in the U.S. Open this week and the 4th of July, and we forget the Maryland Million, and we don't know much about the Breeders' Cup or what's going on at the Travers or whatever. And the next time we hear about horse racing again's next March, when you hopefully give me the next Triple Crown winner at 40-1.
Yeah, I don't know how many more times that's going to happen. That might be one of those one-and-dones right there, buddy.
Well, I'll keep reminding you of it to make you sound smart, Dick.
That's all right. The reality is that is the game. The Triple Crown is the sport, because it's the one time a year where horse racing kind of gets the stage by itself. The Breeders' Cup is in November, right in the middle of generally right about the end of the World Series, right in the middle of the NFL season. So you're just not going to get that kind of pub. But you get 3 Saturdays in the spring, and people are going to be paying attention. The timing of the series is perfect. But, yeah, they got to figure out a way to get people to pay attention. More people. I mean, I'm going to pay attention, but I'm not the audience that they need. I'm already in.
Dick, did you have a winning ticket? Did you bet on or against this horse? And I guess historically, and dude, I've gotten on buses now, right? Smarty Jones, Big Brown, Funny Cy. These are all the ones that I went to, not the ones that I didn't go to over the last 15 or 20 years, where there's always been that opportunity that a horse wins both legs, and we've run bus trips up. This year, I did not have any interest from people. I did not have 50 people that wanted to get on a bus in my world to go up to the Belmont. It turned out to be okay because I got off a bender in Vegas. We won a little hockey game around here, Dick. I'll get to that in a minute.
I heard.
I know you're bored with that, but did you think...
I'm not bored. I thought it was great. I watched it. I thought it was awesome.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute then. Then that's good. I want to talk some hockey with a tough Philly guy who was a part of that Eagles championship. You and I talked about that after they won. But for Justify and for Baffert, I guess there was a big game to go after that horse, because it always is, right? Like, it's 1.5 miles. It's a long way, and it's a tough thing to win. Did you like the horse all week long?
I did. In fact, I loved him. I loved him in the Derby, as you know. I certainly didn't think he could lose the Preakness. I thought there was a chance he could lose the Belmont just because of the circumstance, right? 3rd race, 5 weeks, maybe he finally hits the wall. But you watched him, and then you watched him train, and you looked at him. And when I saw him yesterday, I was over at a barn a couple hours before the race. I'm going, boy, this horse looks as good as he did or better than he did before the Derby. Once I actually saw him, I said, there's no way he's going to lose. And then when he got loose on the lead, there was just no chance any of those horses was going to catch him. He's just too fast.
He is a lifer friend of mine. Dick Jerardi has done horse racing at the Philadelphia Daily News since I was a teenager, Dick. How's that make you feel? I turned 50 this year. Is that nice?
Makes me feel old, brother.
Well, you're in semi-retirement. I think with all this time on your hands, it's been fun having you on a handful of times so far this year, whether it's Eagles winning championships, which is where this started, and the beginning of the Triple Crown run. But on the backside of all of this, the Washington Capitals won a Stanley Cup. And I know, NBC, I guess, with horse racing and the Preakness and the Derby now leading into Stanley Cup games, which is really kind of neat, right? I mean, I think, and certainly for Eddie Olczyk, who I see banging around, and even the football side of Gronkowski and all the celebrity side of all this, the hockey thing has been a joy to participate in over the last 2 months. And Dick, and I know your Baltimore roots and your Rogers Forge roots and your Towson roots and Pimlico and all that stuff and your love of the Orioles and the Colts. We've talked about all that. Did you ever have an ounce of hockey emotion here? Because I've written about my love of hockey, and it was so weird and strange because my dad didn't like hockey. He didn't like horse racing, but he loved the Orioles and the Colts. But not a lot of people loved hockey around here, Dick. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's a fair statement, and I'll tell you this, and some of your older listeners remember this. You're going to remember this, Nestor. You're not that much younger than me, but one of my first memories of hockey was listening to Jim West on the radio called the Baltimore Clippers at the Civic Center when I was a kid, and to the point where I used to keep score of the games. And I remember when I finally went to a couple, what a thrill it was. But yeah, I've never really been an NHL guy because obviously Baltimore didn't have a team. And the Caps started, I want to say, 44 years ago?
73, 74, right? Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I can't say I was paying a lot of attention because I was still living in Baltimore then. And I don't really follow the NHL, even though obviously Philadelphia has a kind of a legendary squad up here in the Flyers. But having said all that, I watched the game the other night. And I just loved watching the emotion on the Caps players, especially obviously Ovechkin. It's always cool to see guys that have tried so hard and been close and not been able to get there, finally get there. I don't care what sport it is. Who doesn't love to watch that? And I loved watching it the other day.
Well, you know what? You've covered how many? 35 Final Fours. Like, literally, you're there when they cut the nets down and do all of that every single year. You've had an intimate, close following with Villanova. You do the Penn State games. I mean, you're not lacking for, being in a champagne-soaked environment, nor am I. I mean, I go back to the 90s. I mean, I remember Ryan Klesko dumping champagne on my head when, Deion Sanders was hosing down who was it? Tim McCarver in the corner, and I was in the room when that happened. So I've been in that environment, but covering a team that you like, that you intimately like, or people that you like, and I know you like Bob Baffert personally, and have a relationship, as do I. So when good things happen to people you like, you feel good about it one way or another. Certainly for my relationship with Trotz, was one of my first coaches, one of my first sort of soulmate guys that I picked up and collected all of my life 30 years later. There was something really special about sitting at his table with the Stanley Cup that Ovechkin delivered at 3 o'clock in the morning the other night. That was kind of cool, and I've written about all that. But there's the part of it, just being a hockey fan and being around a team that wins. You don't get a chance to do that much, where you know some of the internal people and all that they've been through and all that it encompasses and all the moving parts. The horse has all that too, right? Every year when a horse wins, there's trainers and connections and all that. But with a hockey team, these guys, I walk in, there's guys from Denmark and guys from Germany and guys from Russia and guys, guys from Sweden and guys from Canada and guys from Seattle. It's a wild thing to see that sort of a celebration at a party afterward, Dick.
Yeah, and hockey is so unique in that way. And again, I'm not a hockey guy. I don't watch a lot of games, but I always try to tune in when the Stanley Cup is on the line. Because I love the ending. I love the cup on the ice. I love watching these guys skate around with it. It's just, there's really nothing like it in sports. And for you, Nestor, a guy who's been a Caps fan forever, that's kind of who I was rooting for. I was rooting for the Eagles fans when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I didn't grow up here. I wasn't an Eagles fan.
Yeah, you weren't. You're rooting against Tom Brady like every other red-blooded American with a soul.
I wanted to see the Eagles win because my kids grew up here. They were Eagles fans, and I wanted to see, because I know so many people that were desperately waiting, that some people can remember 1960 and Chuck.
We can all die in peace now, man. Everybody who's a Caps fan, an Eagles fan,
Eagles win.
God, they let the Red Sox win. Even Cleveland got a championship out of this, sort of unbelievably. I mean, is there anybody left that's still like? I mean, the Houston Astros won, Dick. I mean,
won, right.
we're getting old now, you know. I mean, all we can hope is that the Yankees never win again. You know, I mean, that's all we can.
Well, we can certainly root for that. Yeah, that's there's no question about that.
Well, we got another Triple Crown in all of this, right? I mean, and another Warriors victory, and I mean, it's been a momentous week around. It really has.
Yeah, it really has been. I mean, look, the Warriors were kind of ho-hum because everybody thought they were going to win. And, look, I love watching them play. I got to be honest with you. I was kind of bored watching Game 5 because Cleveland didn't even look like they wanted to be there. They knew they couldn't win, so they kind of gave up. But, yeah, the scene at Belmont Park on Saturday was so much better. I mean, it was just great, even though it just happened. The emotion and the noise, I mean, talk about noise.
That place has such a roar, doesn't it? Because it's made of concrete, too. It's like, it's sort of old school, right?
And, Belmont Park is, I mean, it's the biggest track in the country. The grandstand stretches forever. And people know, and you knew with like 150 yards to go, this horse was winning. So there was 10 seconds of roar before the horse ever got to the finish line because, this is happening.
You're running the hair up the back of my neck, and you're pissing me off that I didn't go up there on Monday or Saturday because people went. Dude, I was too worn out, man. I mean, I was up with the cup.
I get it.
I mean, Ovechkin came over to our table and took the cup, and 20 minutes later, I saw a video streaming on Twitter of him carrying it through the MGM, the Hakkasan. My wife had blisters. Otherwise, I'd have been in there throwing down with Tiesto. But, we'll do that the next time we win the cup.
There you go.
Hey, Dick, take care of yourself, man. I mean, it's almost like the next time we win a Triple Crown, like it'll just happen again a year or two from now. I don't know. I mean, would you throw a penny in either direction for this happening again, like Halley's Comet or something?
Yeah, here's what's happening. I was talking with some friends of mine about it. The Preakness has become much easier to win because of the way horses are run now. Horses don't run much in 2 weeks after a big race. So what happens is the Derby winner comes, right, for the Preakness always, and the Derby winner's by typically a really, really good horse. Well, a lot of the other horses, the good horses, don't come. They wait for the Belmont. So it's become easier to win the first two legs than like maybe ever, which is why we've had so many attempts at the Triple Crown. So, yeah, I think it's likely now that maybe people have figured out how this is done, or at least Baffert has. And he's the guy who's always going to have a chance because he gets these good horses. Yeah, it might happen more often.
Well, does that diminish our race here? I mean, I know you're a Baltimorean. I know I pointed that out at the beginning, and such is our relationship all these years. But, we're always worried about the diminishment of what's going on here. We always talk about it. Nothing's really happened, right? Like, to your point, a lot of people go. The weather's bad. People still go. The band plays on. The horse race is on. Everybody makes a lot of money. And at some point, they'll figure the Laurel thing out. But the other problem, to your point, is it's very obvious it's become a diminished race, right?
Yeah, it really has, and it's nobody's fault. It's certainly not the Maryland Jockey Club's fault or Sal Sinatra or Tim Ritvo or any of the people that work there. It's just what's happened to the sport. And the only way for the Preakness to get the very best horses, like the Derby does every year, and the Belmont many years, is to move the race back. They'd have to move it back to have it a month or 5 weeks after the Derby. That would, of course, mess with the modern tradition of Derby 2 weeks later, Preakness 3 weeks, Belmont. But it's really that's on Pimlico. They can move it anytime they want. The Derby's not going anywhere.
All right, man. Well, rest up. I will bother you the next time Philadelphia wins a championship. I need a college basketball insider, or I don't know, I need a tip at the races. I mean, you got like the whole sports gambling thing now too, right? Like, I was out in Vegas, but like you can go like across the track right now to Monmouth and, bet against the Orioles. By the way, I almost bet against the Orioles. I never bet sports ever, but I landed in Vegas. It was 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, they can't win 2 in a row. There's no way they could beat the Mets twice. I did not bet on it, but I would have lost my sports bet. So that let me know to stay the hell out of your state up there in New Jersey, man. Dick Jerardi is our guest, the Philadelphia Daily News. He is Dick Jerardi out on Twitter as well, and Triple Crown champion. You can stay up on all that he does at ExpressBet as well. He works for them. ExpressBet, that's XPressBet, ExpressBet, and all sorts of stuff up there for anybody who loves the horse racing thing as well. You can find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.